All right. I want you to meet me as a young child, and then here I am as a teenager. The reason that I'm showing you these pictures is because in my professional creative life, it is so important that I am remembering who I was, where my roots came from, what made me have joy. And you can see here, I did have a lot of joy. I loved to ride my bike down hills, and I still do that. I loved to create like really big earrings with paper when I was probably 3 or 4, and I would wear them into the into the shop or the store, and my brother was so freaking embarrassed. But it is vital that we have that joyful expression in our personal lives. If you're kind of feeling a bit stuck in the creative world, one of the things that you can do is play, and we'll talk more about that later. But also style, really important for me. You'll see my style progress as we go on. When I put on an outfit, I'm not putting it on for anyone else. I'm putting it on because of how it feels on my body and the colors and the lines and the textures, and that absolutely changes the way that I show up in the world. So. Okay, here I am as an abstinence educator. I'm on my honeymoon. I love the feeling of repression that I was still in at the time. My husband and I, and I'm going to talk more about this, but we were both photographers, and we started a wedding photography business. But before that, I talked to women, to young girls, 6th grade to 12th grade, about sex. And I was very much in an evangelical Christian religion, which absolutely still have friends in that way, but a lot of my belief systems have changed. And the beautiful thing about this was that I was getting to teach people how to look at their bodies. I told them all the time, I was like, get a mirror, go look at your body. It's super important. And you'll see that my beliefs change, and I was able to teach people how to release their repression through expression, but we had to start somewhere. So this is where I started. These are some of my earliest art pieces. I had a thing for feet, not in a, I think I loved the body, but I didn't know how to photograph it. So I was like, let's start with the feet. So just know that we all start somewhere. I thought that these pictures were so good. I was learning shutter speed. I shot on automatic for quite a long time. I got very frustrated because I wasn't getting the images that I wanted. So I finally took the plunge and learned how to do the shutter speed. These are clearly museum worthy. So then my husband and I, we started this business together. This is one of our first engagement sessions, playing with texture and movement. And I don't know how many of you are photographers, but there's quite a lot to take in. So you're learning how to work with the subjects. You have extra props. They have goals and intentions for what they're wanting. Do they want to print it? So there's a lot going on. And these were some of our beginning stages. And we found that, like, if you just get people feeling like themselves and playing, you'll get really good shots. Our business expanded. We were able to travel to Ireland, and this wedding was actually shot in Hawaii. I think it's hilarious and real, but it's still beautiful. And that's kind of a combination of how I live my life and how I do my business. So we're shooting weddings, and women start coming to me to want to shoot traditional boudoir, which is where it's typically where you photograph a woman in lingerie for their partner. And in my context, it was for their honeymoon. And it was a little bit risky, a little bit like, ooh, I can't believe I'm doing this, because I thought that it was only between man and woman. You had to be married, all of this. But yes, I was doing it. It was great. And part of the fire in me that had been suppressed, repressed, kind of lit up. You can see like, I don't know if you can notice the progress, but starting to get like a little bit better at what I'm doing. And we are learning about concept. I'm sure that this is something that you all focus on, but we wanted to do like a high-low with this particular engagement session. So have them in tux and sequins, but then we put them at Waffle House. It was funny and it was fun. And if you're not having fun, if you're not enjoying what you're doing, it's absolutely going to be reflected in your work. I love the little napkin down here next to their shoes and their sequins, and just how kind of gross it is that they're eating Waffle House and it's all coming out of their mouth. That makes me feel alive because it's raw and it's real. At this point in our careers, we had decided that we wanted to go separate ways. And he became a commercial photographer. And this was my first wedding that I shot by myself. Drove down to, I think it was Edisto, and this couple was beautiful and light was gorgeous, but I'm starting to kind of come into my own as a photographer. And there's a lot going on behind the scenes as well, with me deconstructing my faith, asking more questions, realizing that I'm not super happy in my sex life, and I have spent a lot of time blaming that on other people. And this is when I like come out of a place of victimhood and really step into taking responsibility for my emotions and my feelings, and just becoming the artist and the human that I wanted to be. This is also when I start to fall in love with myself. So I had hated who I was for a long time. And I wanted to be a safe place for other people to learn to practice loving their bodies, loving themselves exactly as they are. So this is when I really start to get tender with myself. And my style has progressed a bit too. I love this quote. It says, making a piece of art may feel a lot like telling a family secret. And secret telling by its very nature involves shame and fear. It asks the question, what will they think of me once they know this? This is a frightening question, particularly if we have ever been made to feel ashamed for our curiosities and explorations, whether it be social, sexual, or spiritual. And this is by Julia Cameron. She wrote The Artist's Way. Highly recommend this book. I still do the morning pages, which is like 3 pages of just dumping your brain out in the morning with no filter, and it's incredibly helpful. And as I'm learning how to come into my own, I realized that my sexuality is not based on someone else. It's completely based on me and what I want and how I feel. And I realized, oh my gosh, I'm completely disconnected from my own sensuality, which is different from sexuality, and sexuality. I started asking my own self different questions, but then I also started asking these traditional boudoir clients that I had. I started asking them different questions like, what do you love about your body? What do you not like about your body? Because that is often what I heard more. I don't like this. I don't, let's try to make me look smaller. Can you Photoshop, blah, blah, blah. And honesty is one of my #1 values. And I take that in my personal life and in my creative life. And I didn't feel honest anymore photoshopping women's bodies. So I just stopped and I told people, no, I'm not going to do that. And hey, what if we actually really enjoyed that cellulite? It's actually really beautiful lines, the way that it moves. And I decided, okay, I'm going to go to New York. These pictures are from New York. And I'm going to start a portfolio. I'm going to try to shoot it as authentic and honest as I can. You can see that I began to just photograph people how they are. Crazy thought. I love this one on the right because we found him, doing with his hand over his mouth, and we just replicated that. I love to use the resources that we have at hand instead of making it extravagant and overcomplicating things. We can use what we have right here. This is where I learned to use a light, one single light for the first time. This was the first shot. And I incorporated movement alongside of it. So I did kind of double dip in learning things. I would suggest that you try to become proficient, or at least try your hand at just one thing at a time. Don't get too complicated, but I'm proud of this picture. It showed me that I can do way more than I think that I can, and you can too. So I got a studio, which was a big deal. It was a tiny little white box, and I couldn't even put a backdrop up in there. It was a sweet time. And also, like, my style continues to evolve, and I'm feeling more and more like myself. Yeah, you can go to it. This studio is the one that I'm currently in. I share it with a chiropractor, but to start with, it was completely my own. I hired a designer to come in and help make it feel like a space that was efficient and beautiful. And I'm still in there today. There's been hundreds of women and others that have come in to feel the liberation and freedom of loving themselves as they are. These are some of my very first images, and I'm learning how to use props and how to ask people questions. And it's so funny because I started a business about women, and I was scared shitless of women. I was scared of having that connection and really learning about my own feminine nature. But sometimes you just put yourself into things and you learn along the way.
What I love about this is this image on the left with the yellow socks is one of the most iconic Ladygroove photos. And it was one of the first photos that she ever shot in her big studio,
Yeah.
which I think is just a really cool story.
Yeah, I just love those socks, and I had those shoes, and I was like, what would it look like if we put them on her and photographed? You can really do anything you want. If you have something in your brain that says, I want to do this, but I feel like I can't, I would just ask you to journal about that, write it down, tell me why. Tell me why you can't do that. Is it harming anyone? No, probably not. So I continue learning how to ask women to move their bodies. This is called face plant. Why not put your face in a plant? And you'll see that a lot of my work involves nature and it involves food. Both of those I love personally, and they're mostly free and they're right there. So same thing here, the picture on the right, I had a magazine I was flipping through, thought this would be really cool to incorporate, and we made some magic. The one on the left, we were trying to showcase her legs. I think that was a problem area for her that she didn't love. And so I just had this backdrop sitting on the side. I was like, hey, let's put a hole in it, put your head in it. And she is laughing her ass off on the other side of that. You can't see, but she's laughing really hard. This is Franny the Manny, and I had her at my home as I was starting Ladygroove. She's had a bad day here, a storm blew her over, but as I became more comfortable with my own nudity and with being nude in front of other people, I was just like, I have to display this, and it was really cool because people came to know, oh, that's your house. And we got into so many good conversations about their body struggles and their sexuality, and nudity brings up a lot of emotion for people. And I love that because I'm not really super scared of emotion anymore. I used to be, but it's a beautiful thing. And I would encourage you to see how you feel in your body as we continue to go on. How does the nudity make you feel? On the left, this is it was one of my favorite shoots. I was learning as a photographer how to light more than one person, which is more complicated than just one person. And it was a take personally on platonic intimacy. I think that as a culture, we have put so much emphasis on our partner, and it really takes away from what we can find in community. And so everyone's boundaries with that are going to be totally different. But this was me crossing into what can it be like to have nudity without sexuality within relationships. And they had to ask each other a lot of questions like, is it okay if I put my head here? And, you know, can we hug when we're naked? And so many questions come up, but so fun, really fun. And then the one on the right, this is a nipple of a woman who is breastfeeding. Breastfeeding is allowed to be posted on Instagram, but they actually took this down. They took it down, and that can be frustrating. I heard a meme the other day, and someone was saying like, oh, the sexual tension build between what I post on Instagram if they're going to take it off. It's like this constant play that we have going back and forth because I never really know if it's going to get taken down. But I think it's ridiculous that they took this specific one down because she is literally feeding a child. But alas. Okay, I would love to tell you, just let me check in on the time. Just a minute about what the Ladygroove experience is like. The Ladygroove experience is basically bringing, it's not basically, it is a movement of bringing freedom, love, and liberation one body at a time, and changing the world. Because when we become alive on the inside and we feel connected to who we are and we feel like we can be ourselves, it actually changes the world. So from the time people book until the time they get their pictures back, they are having probably like 6 or 7 different experiences. I love walking people through this and being with them. Everyone comes in with a different intention and reason, but they do a questionnaire. Everyone does a questionnaire beforehand. And I would encourage you, just in whatever art form you're doing, to bring a lot of intention and communication throughout whatever your process is, because you might show up with one idea and they have another. But we talk through all of this, and then we kind of like leave room for the mystery to happen, because there's definitely a mystery that happens. And what else do I want to tell you about the Ladygroove experience? I would just say that when people come in, we are going through a somatic process. So we are getting into our hips. We are giving ourselves permission to move, to exist, to be exactly as we are, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, physically, all of it. We come and it's just total acceptance. Everyone makes a playlist so they feel safe, so they feel connected while they're there. And then we use one prop. And with that one prop, you could give me one prop and I could give you 30 different images. You really don't have to make it extravagant. And then like a lot of people say, oh, I forgot that pictures come with this, because I really came for the experience itself. I love that I've created a safe container for people to explore, to be sensual. I had someone who sent me a book and a beautiful letter. I wish I actually had that letter with me now, but she was saying for the first time, and she's like, I'm tearing up as I'm writing this. For the first time, I felt safe to be sensual in front of someone. And there were times that it came into my mind, I feel so silly, or I shouldn't be here, or blah, blah, blah. And she said, I just took a deep breath. I came back into my body, and I was like, no, this is what I am made for. And so just such a powerful thing. Also, a funny story is I had a chicken come in with one of the women, and she wasn't laying eggs anymore. And when she left, the girl messaged me and she's like, my chicken is laying eggs again. So we made her fertile again, and I'm so proud of that. I am doing Ladygroove experiences all throughout the year. I do different containers each month, each season. I would absolutely love to photograph you to be a part of your body journey. And we'll show you how to get in touch with me later if that's something that's for you.
Awesome. I love the
Sarah?
chicken story. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Allie. That was amazing. So I'm going to share a bit about her body now, which is Allie's amazing coffee table book. This is a mock-up of the cover. We don't have the books yet, so this is my best attempt at a black on black foil stamp, which I think I did a pretty good job. And we're going to show you a little bit. Thank you. We're going to show you a little bit of the behind the scenes process and take you through our collaboration a little bit, and you'll also get to see a lot more of Allie's brilliant work. So again, back to the correspondence screenshots. This was my first email to Allie about 2.5 years after I DM'd her on Instagram, and I saw her post on Instagram that she was looking for a designer to make a coffee table book with her. So I emailed her and I said, I don't know if you remember this, but I DM'd you on Instagram 2 years ago. And I saw you're looking for a graphic designer, so I knew I had to reach back out, and we had a phone call and it was amazing. But at the end, I wasn't quite sure how it went. I couldn't tell if Allie liked me or not. I couldn't tell if she wanted to hire me or not. And so I was a little bit nervous about it. But then the next day I received...
I did want to.
She did want to hire me.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
The next day, it's okay. I received this email and I was so happy. She said she loved speaking with me and that she had been excited ever since. So this was where it all began.
It's funny too, and I won't talk long. She was going through this process of like, does she like me? Does she want to hire me? I was going through a process of, can I do this book? Do I have what it takes? Am I enough? Do I have the money? Blah, blah, all these things. So we're both going through our own internal struggles, and we were both awesome the whole time.
And it worked out.
It did work out.
So this was our initial mood board for her body. So you see a lot of really elegant, bold typography. We wanted it to really feel like that Ladygroove word mark with the typography. And I incorporated her actual photography in here because I wanted it to feel like her and feel like Ladygroove, feel like her work. A lot of black and white, a lot of really elegant elements, but with pops of yellow and blue, and bringing that in through her actual photography as well. So we'll talk more about color in a bit. I could talk about typography for another 2 hours, but I know you guys probably don't want to hear it. But this is a little bit of our type exploration, which is my favorite part of any design process. And we ended up going with Asonis on the right, which is a revival of Dido, which is what the Ladygroove logo is based off of, because we wanted it to feel really connected. So we ended up going with Asonis and Sophia. Again, I won't deep dive into the type nerd stuff, so we'll keep moving on. This was our initial spread style exploration for the photographic pages, and a big part of my job in this book was just figuring out the relationships between the images, with one image and another, and how the stories of the images related to each other, but also building out the story of the whole book through the photography. So just kind of figuring out that flow and how these images would work together. Allie?
Yep. This is a practical example of how I regulate my nervous system. So if you're feeling too blue, you feel low, you can focus on the color yellow. And if you feel too frenetic, high, then you can focus on blue. I do it every day. And then I just said, you are the captain of your body ship. You have full body autonomy, just as a reminder.
Yeah, so this is an actual page in the book. It's one of the introduction pages, and it's just kind of an explanation of why we chose the shades of blue and yellow that we chose. And as a designer, I love that because I'm always trying to integrate color psychology into whatever I'm designing and make sure my color choices, make people feel the emotions that I want to evoke. So I love that we were really explicit about this is the choice that we made, and this is how Allie uses these colors in her life, and this is how you can think about yellow and blue also. This is just the introduction, one of the intro pages to the book, just to show you guys a little bit of how it feels. I love this spread because it's really simple. I think it's really interesting, and it feels really Ladygroove, and it's one of the more typographic and design heavy spreads, so I got to have a little bit of fun here. So now we're gonna dive into some of the photography that's in the book. So this pair of images is the opener of the entire book. It's the first photos that you see, and I love that. We're opening with a woman with a bag of Wonder Bread in between her butt cheeks. I think it's amazing. And you know, a lot of Allie's work is, it can feel really heavy. The topics can be really heavy, talking about eating disorders or people's relationships with their bodies and exploring those ideas through photography. And a lot of the photography, it feels, some of it reflects that heaviness and that heavy nature, but there's this other side of Ladygroove that's feels really whimsical, like this does, and it's really playful, and it's really unexpected and just silly, and asking questions like, what happens when you stick a loaf of bread in between your legs? Like,
Joy.
why not? Joy happens. So just kind of starting the book off on that note of like, it doesn't have to be so serious. Like, let's play and have fun and, you know, laugh.
We did.
I also loved this pair of images. I know that one of these women did struggle with an eating disorder, and so they decided to bring food into the shoot and play with food and, you know, make food not so scary, but really embrace it and bring it along with the journey. And I think that's just really beautiful. And again, like, how silly to like put spaghetti in different body parts. And I love this spread because I think it really speaks to the very high interpretive value of all of these photos. When you're flipping through this book and looking at these photos, everyone's going to interpret these photos differently and have a different story and interpret the stories in these photos differently. So I was showing my roommate the book one day, and she looked at this and she was like, I really hope those aren't the same noodles. Which is hilarious. And you know, you can interpret this stuff however you do. So this one tonally is very different. It feels a bit more serious. And I love this photo because this is how we laid it out in the book. And I think it just speaks to how, you know, the pagination and the editorial design, it can bring another life into these photos. I mean, both of these individually are absolutely gorgeous. When you put them together with these two necks together, it almost starts to feel like these two people forming one neck and one woman. And I just think it's really powerful and evocative.
Yeah. This is one of my favorites. I love it because we are merging the two into one. We're showing that while we do our own work individually, we're actually creating a new world of love and liberation, like I said, and we're in this thing together. Also, personally, a lot of my I bring my ancestors into this, so like my grandmas and my mom and people who didn't have the choice or the resources to be able to be as free as we can right now. And so I feel like I'm doing the work and kind of like carrying the torch, and we all do that. Everyone brings all of their families and their stories into Ladygroove. But yeah, this page is beautiful too.
Yeah. So these next three are a series in the book, and there are also these prompts and questions and statements that Allie wrote that are mixed throughout the book. And so what we did is we had, 10, 15 of these statements or these questions, and we kind of sandwiched them in between photos that we hope for viewers evokes those questions and helps them think about it. So thinking about, what are your body boundaries? Does it cross your body boundary to have 3 lit candles in between your legs? You know, I think it was really interesting going through and interpreting these photos and trying to figure out what questions they evoked and then telling that story. This is just a little bit on how we used color. So you can see the blue and yellow, you know, this is mixed in throughout the book. And we chose very specific photos that we wanted to kind of highlight in this way and almost frame with the pops of color to break up a lot of that black and white. And I love that this just looks like a fine art print that's kind of framed on the page, and it can kind of give you ideas of like, if you had this print, this is how you could frame it in these different colors. I love this photo. Allie's told me so many stories about all of this work, so I just want to share it all with you. But this woman in particular got a bad sunburn like the week before her Ladygroove session, and so she wanted to cancel because she thought that she wanted to cancel because of her tan lines, and Allie was like, no, like, we're going with this. That's gonna be amazing. And looking at this, like, it just feels so real and honest, and you can really connect with like this idea of having this awful sunburn and then it being imprinted on your body for however many months. So I just think it's really cool. I think this goes back to the face plant photo. Like, what happens if I ask someone to lick a plant, or what happens if I put flowers in someone's butt? Like, it's just play and exploration. Allie, do you want to talk about these?
Sure.
These are two of my favorite images.
Yeah, I love these pictures. The one on the right, we wanted to do some kind of impressions on her body. And I was like, you have kids? Okay, do you have Legos? And she was like, yes, I have so many Legos. Legos are a pain in my ass. And I was like, we are getting you to sit on Legos. And it turned out really, really beautiful. And then on the left, I was at her house and I said, what do you have in your refrigerator? What kind of props can we use? And I found a thing of bacon. I think you can interpret it in many, many ways. I like to think of her as breakfast, maybe as dessert. And I also love the idea of, you know, women being objectified and meat and so many different things, but it stuck really well. And when you're working with bodies, you do want like a consistency that you can stick on things. You me tell this one?
Yeah.
It's really important that, again, that I'm utilizing all that's around me, whether it's nature or my studio. And I looked around my studio and I was like, what can I do to not have to spend any money, but to use what I have here? And I looked up, like, these beams are amazing. I want someone to hang on them. I don't want to just shoot up. I want them to physically be on the beams. And so I asked her, she was super strong. And we actually brought a third person in, had a ladder. We had a safe word and we put her up there and pulled the ladder away. I got the light and stuff set before we took the picture, and it was so fun. It turned out really well.
I think this is one of Allie and I's favorites for both of us, but just kind of speaks to this idea of your breasts can be really heavy, especially women with really large breasts, and at the end of the day you just want to take your bra off and like relax and just want to take the weight off. So this idea of using your hands as a shelf, like a support to take that weight off, is something I think is relatable to a lot of people. They feel that pain when they're looking at this photo.
I have so many ideas for breast shots. So if you have large breasts and you want to release them, come my way.
I just love this image. I wanted to include it. I think this person feels so peaceful and at rest, and yeah, it's beautiful. So something else I got to do that I really loved in this book is I got to play with typography a bit, and I got to be a little bit experimental with it because so much of the book was photographic, with really big photos and simple layouts. There's this opportunity to do something a little bit playful with type, and so I took these different phrases that Allie had written and I just kind of interpreted them and played around with them, and got to do, still really simple and really bold, but just a little bit playful. This is another example. This is an act of aesthetic acceptance, no matter how small, is worth celebrating. It's a little bit hard to read, obviously, but this, I think about someone looking at this book and standing around a coffee table, a couple people together and just kind of like going around the circle and reading it and trying to figure out what it says is an exercise in itself. And maybe it helps you think about this question or the statement a little bit deeper, but just think about that cyclical process of, aesthetic acceptance. And it's sort of a never-ending journey. This is a little bit of our cover exploration. This was the first round of our cover exploration. We weren't sure if we wanted it to be typographic or if we wanted to have a photo on it or what we wanted to do. We were really inspired by the Tom Ford book cover. And we thought we might want to do something like that, which is what inspired number one. And this is a very rare example of a time when my first concept that I designed actually went on to be the final cover concept, which doesn't happen very often. Very often you have to get those ideas out and then you find your idea in the 30th, 40th, 400th iteration, however many. But the first one here I created, it went on to be the real cover. It evolved a bit. And we ended up doing a black linen hardcover with a black on black foil stamp, and then a white foil stamp for the line at the bottom. And something that's really cool about doing projects like this in real life is you can do these cool treatments that you like dream about doing when you're in school and you try to figure out ways to DIY a foil stamp, or you have to wrap your own book cover and it's like a total disaster, but you can pay someone else to do that in real life. So we got to do some really cool stuff, and we ended up doing a yellow edge printing as well. And this is a photo that we got from the printer to look at the yellow edge. But I love the cover as a whole with the yellow, because the black cover, with this big black type, it feels, quite serious. It has some weight to it. It feels very elevated. But then you have this kiss of yellow around the edge that brings in that joy and that playfulness, and that kind of quirky nature that Ladygroove embodies. Just in addition to this heavy stuff that we're exploring. So I think as a whole it really tells a nice story of Ladygroove. And this photo is terrible, but they're the only photos we have of the actual book from the printer, so I wanted to share them with you. And then just finally a little bit more of our process. On this day I came to Allie's apartment and I printed out the whole book and spread it out all over the floor, and we were working on the pagination and figuring out what images do we want before this phrase or after this question, or where should the blue pops be, where should the yellow pops be, making sure they're spread out well throughout the book. We probably spent 3 or 4 hours just moving these pages around, getting the openers right, getting the closers right, thinking about what story we wanted to tell. And it was a lot of fun. It was also the first day that we met, and Allie got me soup. I don't know why I said the soup part, but I just remember the soup.
That's important, definitely.
It was very kind. And then just some final, proofs here. The day on the left that we got the proof, and it was really exciting. And then final type size tweaks here in the middle. I always make the font half a point smaller on the last proof, on the last step. I don't know why, but I always do it. And then looking at some different cover samples, just production things. So we just wanted to share a few thoughts, a few notes in thinking about all of this work and things that we're learning and things that we hope resonate with you that you can think about in your own creative journeys. So my first one is send the email, make the cold call, do the Instagram DM, whatever it is, reach out, put yourself out there, reach out to people that you admire and that you want to work with and whose work that you love. Like designing this book with Allie was a total dream come true for me. It was like such a dream project. And I never would have done this if I didn't send that shameless Instagram DM 3 years ago. And we didn't even end up working together then, but you know, it came back around. And reaching out, like, you'll get a lot of rejection, and that's okay. You know, like they say, if you get 9 rejections, you'll get 1 email back. A lot of people probably won't respond, but 1 might. And I think that I've had a few opportunities because I'm like shameless in contacting people and reaching out, and I just think that's really important.
Rejection is just redirection, whether it's your love life, whether it is your creative life, it's just a different path. So you have to get used to the rejection part for sure. Play. Oh, it's something that I love so much. One thing that I do when I'm feeling stuck, and I may have already talked a bit about this, is play. And I just sit with myself and I ask, what do I need? What do I want? That has nothing to do with the project that I'm working on. Sometimes it's like, oh, I need to address this issue that I've been avoiding, or sometimes it's like, I need to clean out my sock drawer. And that can be the best thing that you can do to like move energy. And it's so fun to play. And you can incorporate like heaviness and which is what I kind of did here. On the left, this was during COVID. I was feeling frustrated. I was feeling overwhelmed, constricted, all the things. And I was like, I need to get this out of my body. And I can't remember if I've told you all this, but repression is released through expression. So I released it in here on the left. It felt so good. And then on the right, this was like I had lipstick on. I felt pretty, but then I was like, I'm so tired of perfection and staying in the lines, and perfectionism will absolutely destroy your creativity. So I would suggest you eat a gnarly cheeseburger and let it run down your face, or do whatever you can to get out of that box and feel, but play. And lastly, I did want to tell you that your humanity does not disqualify you from living your life and from creating. People want to hear about your humanity. They want to hear about your success, absolutely. But being a real person is what makes you feel connected.
So my last one, I wrote be uncomfortable, and this probably sounds so cliche and like people have told you this all the time, but I really believe that like we don't fully understand cliches until we experience them for our own lives. And I feel like in my independent work, I've been experiencing this a lot. You know, at school, I had instructors to teach me what to do and what not to do in my design work. And when I'm working at PepsiCo, I have a team of designers and a creative director, and they say yes, 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 no, no, no to my concepts, and they tell me what to fix with my type, and they tell me how to make my work better, and I can gut check with them, and I can say, is this good, is this bad, like, is this working or not? And that's very comfortable for me. And you know, that probably is starting to feel really comfortable for a lot of you guys. And I started going off on my own a little bit and doing independent work, you know, with this book and some branding work. And I realized that I didn't have a team of designers or a creative director to tell me what was good or what sucked. And I had to figure it out on my own. And that what feels so uncomfortable to me sometimes. And it makes me doubt myself and think like, am I a good enough designer to make this book right now? I don't know if I am, but I think going out on my own and figuring that out for myself, it's taught me how to start to learn to trust myself and self-edit, which are important things to learn. So, you know, I would just say to embrace that, and you learn different things doing different kinds of work, which is cool.
You can pre-order this book. It's exciting. I think April 19th, it will be printed, and then we should have them by the end of May, but it's helpful for you to get excited, and it's also helpful for us for you to pre-order. You can go to iamladygroove.com and you'll see this page, and you can have it on your nightstand or on your coffee table, or you can rip out the pages and put them on your wall or frame them, whatever you want to do. Burn them. I don't know, whatever makes you feel happy, but do buy the book.
Maybe don't burn them, but
why not? At least one book needs to be burned.
And we end with Allie laying in Ladygroove after we finish the pagination.
That was a lot of relief. So you can find me on Instagram. Go ahead and hook up with me. It's just Ladygroove. You can email me. You can go to the website, iamladygroove.com. All three would honestly be preferred, and I would absolutely love to work with you.
And feel free to shoot me an email. You know, I'm recently out of M.AD School of Ideas, so I'm happy to chat. Go to my website. You can also follow PepsiCo Design on Instagram and check us out. And that's all we have.
We will take some questions. I wonder if there are any.
I have a question. I am so excited by your work. I think it's incredible, both of you guys. I'm like fangirling over here. But
thank you.
I actually have a question for both of you all. I guess I'll start with Allie. I was wondering, you kind of like pioneered your way into this little niche, and it might, at sometimes I feel like it could have been daunting or something to go into an area that's like brash and emotional, and kind of a lot of people think it's taboo. So how did you like stay confident in your work when there are a lot of people out there that might think that, you know, it shouldn't be a thing, when I disagree. I think it's gorgeous.
Sure.
But I was wondering about that.
I love that. I love that question. Is it Katarina?
Yes.
Thank you for getting on here first and being seen. I know that can be a challenge and can be nerve-wracking. So thank you for that. I would have two things to say about that. One, self-doubt is just a part of it. It's going to come with you. For me, it's with me at almost all times. I just put it in the back seat and I say, I see you, I hear you and feel you, but you're not running this show anymore. I am, because I'm an adult and I know what feels right in my body. And then the second thing is, as you come into your own knowing and you really line up with your values and what feels good, you do have people that disagree with you, but you actually call in your tribe, you call in your people. And that feels so good. And it continues to encourage you and lead you. And it feels like, oh my God, if I change this, you know, if I go from traditional boudoir to this, no one's going to show up for me. And it's absolutely the opposite.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then I also wanted to ask Sarah, because I'm in the design program as well. And I was wondering how this collaboration, how you kind of like weaved through like having your own design in there, but also like respecting Allie's space and her work and everything. I know you touched a bit on that, but maybe just a little bit more thought of like, you know, working with other people, because a lot of the projects in school are very solo. So I was kind of wondering if you could touch on that transition.
I think that is something that happens no matter what job you're doing after graduation. I mean, my work at PepsiCo is so different from this because I'm trying to create something that my VP will like, not necessarily something that I will like, which is a kind of different skill set. So that was probably the hardest thing for me, of transitioning from school to like creating whatever I want, essentially, you know, around topics that I love, to transitioning to a more corporate job. That's figuring that out was probably the toughest thing for me. I think in collaborations with other creatives, more than anything, their perspective adds value more than it adds like frustration or takes away. So, you know, I say I didn't have other designers to work with, or I didn't have a creative director, but I had Allie, who was brilliant creative. And so if I wasn't sure about something, we would talk about it and figure it out. And she had, you know, she has a pretty well-defined brand for Ladygroove with, you know, this really elegant high fashion typography and this black and white, you know, color palette. And then we wanted to do the pops of yellow and blue. And so I think having those guardrails a lot of times can like inspire creativity more than it takes it away, because I know the boundaries that I'm working within and that I can create within. So yeah, I don't know if that's helpful, but
No, it definitely did. I'm writing some stuff down. Well, thank you guys. That was such great work.
Hey guys, I actually had a question. First of all, the work is absolutely stunning, from the cover of the book, the actual, you know, pictures. It's, to me, it was strange, because that's actually the kind of work I'm looking for personally in my life to like hang around my house. So that was really cool to see. But there was a line, and I think it said, "It is safe to be inside of her body." And that line to me was, it like just hit me at such an emotional level. And I was wondering who came up with that line.
Yeah, I did. And
So beautiful.
definitely. Do you want to tell me what it, like, what did it do for you? How did it feel?
Whew. You know, I've struggled a lot with body confidence and eating disorders and stuff. And so it was just something that just touched me on like on a really personal, emotional level.
Mhm. Absolutely. I'm so glad to hear that. And thank you for sharing your story. Really, really powerful. I wrote that because for most of my life, I haven't felt safe in my body. And my nervous system has it has been dysregulated. And I have hated myself. So that one of the very first things that I did probably 15 years ago is I really didn't like my breasts. Like I hated them so much. And I actually wanted to apologize to people for being in their presence because I thought I was so disgusting, which is absolutely ridiculous. And so what I did was I just kind of sat still, and I felt like something told me, Allie, just put your hands on your breast. Just sit there with them. And our hands are so powerful, and the ability to just pause with ourselves can bring so much healing. So I've done a lot of mirror work, a lot of looking at myself in the mirror and seeing what stories lie underneath the body, because the body's just a portal. And actually, it's crazy, because if you've lived your whole life thinking I can't feel safe, you don't realize that there is the possibility to feel safe. And that is what I have done. And that is what I do with women when they come into the studio.
Well, thank you. That all was very touching. Thank you.
Good. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Can I add something? Hey
Yeah.
everyone. I just quickly wanted to add, I joined this call just because I was curious to hear more about the book and the background, but I literally came back from a session with Allie. I flew from California to join her, and I cannot say how a transformative experience it was. For someone who has struggled with skin picking disorder for most of my life, getting naked in front of a camera and being vulnerable was such a unique and very, very liberating. And it was, I cannot speak highly how a transformative experience that was. So
It was for me too. I'm still beaming from our naked time. It was very powerful.
and I'm excited to see the book in physical form. So congratulations to both of you.
Thank you. Hey, I listened to your Bulgarian soundtrack before I got on here to pump me up. So thank you.
I have a question. Hi, Allie and Sarah. Sarah, it's
Hey.
nice to put a face to your name. We've spoken before. Awesome. Thank you so
Hi,
much for
Liz.
talking today. So I guess I'm a student right now at the Miami Portfolio Center, and I'm a photographer first, and then I came to become a designer. And I guess what I want to ask is sometimes people have a problem with mixing the two mediums together, photography and design. And that's something I'm very passionate about. And I kind of miss the photography aspect. And after, especially Allie, like you've really reminded me of like women empowerment, talking about mental health and like your body image and everything. I guess what I'm asking is what advice would you give me to help to push that in a way that it's not fully photography, but not fully design, but to incorporate the two mediums together and not
Sarah?
feel guilty about it?
Mm. Sarah, do you want to take this or would you like me to?
I can start, and then if you want to add
Okay.
anything.
Okay.
I would say just from a practical perspective, there have been multiple moments in my job when I wish I had photography skills. You know, if I'm working on, I was working once at PepsiCo. We do these annual design books every year, and I was designing a page on our website for the books, and we needed to shoot the books and put the photography on the site. So if I had those skills myself, I could have just shot it myself and done the art direction for the shoot and shot it. And, you know, having all of those different skills, then it would have been a lot easier and more efficient. And I think there's so many disciplines in design in general, you know, publication design, branding. It requires a lot of art direction for photography. So if you're doing a branding project, you're shooting, you know, branding photos or shooting product photography, and you as the brand designer have the best understanding of the image of that brand in your head. So if you also have those skills as a photographer, you can do the art direction and have that like comprehensive vision. And even if you're not the photographer that's shooting that product, having that skill set will help so much in like communicating to the photographer and doing the pre-production and, you know, doing the art direction and the shot list, the shot list. And I think it's just so valuable as a creative to be multifaceted, and it will add to your work.
Yeah, I am on board with all of that. The only other thing I would say, I wish that we had time to go through this with you, but I would just look at the guilt piece, where the guilt comes from, what it means, you know, just explore that part of it.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely be in touch with you guys. Thank you so much for answering, and thank you for speaking with us today. It was very powerful, meaningful.
Good.
Thank you, Liz.
If I could, I did have a question as well as for Allie. First of all, the book is amazing. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I had a question about for you, Allie. You spoke a little bit about the personal work that went into you transitioning from like wedding photography into then boudoir and all of that. So my question is, how did you start changing your style when you went into boudoir? To like, how did that transformation happen? Because it has a little bit of a fashion vibe and it's very aesthetically pleasing, but very different than what you see in traditional boudoir. So I would just love to kind of understand how you came to the style of shooting that you do today.
I love that question. Thank you so much. How do you say your name?
It's Desiree.
Desiree.
Yeah.
So good to meet you. Yeah. Baby steps, trying new things little by little, getting an idea and being like, oh, I wonder what that would look like on a body. Or I have this thing in my closet and it's beautiful and it makes me feel happy. I wonder if I could shoot someone wearing this or not wearing this, or, you know, whatever it is. So just playing and adding new things, baby steps. That's how it happened.
Yeah. I guess like you said, playing gets you creative.
Right. And not having to have a final outcome. Just do your craft, and maybe it's not a big project. You're just learning and practicing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Desiree.
Hello, ladies.
Hi.
Hi. I I'm so inspired by the work. It's amazing. It's beautiful. Thank you. And it's like divine timing too, because it's like in the direction that I'm headed and on as far as like educating on intimacy and all that. But it's beautiful how more than anything you give an experience to people and you hold space for them, and then you combine it with art. It's just like it's just good, everything good timing, you know. I had a question that's like more practical though. It's like, where would you like to see like a book like this really kind of come alive? Like as far as like do you really want it to like be in people's home? Of course you want it to be sold and be in people's homes, but like, is there any other kind of like event or dynamic or, you know, a location where you'd like this to come alive?
Let me just make sure that I'm understanding what you're asking. You're wanting to know, other than being in people's homes, where do I want it to be showcased, or where can you come find it? Which one of those are you asking?
Yeah, like showcased, I guess. Like, yeah.
I want it to be in as many homes as it possibly can be. I want to the comfort level of people. I want their children, I want their teenagers to see it. I want them to see that cellulite and face scars and all of that is real, and I want it to impact all human beings. So there's not really a specific, and I want it not only to impact people, but I want them to join the movement, to be a part of it in their own liberation and their own connection to their bodies. And it's kind of just a reminder. So anyone who wants to buy it, that would be my answer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
For the for photo books, what is like the process for publishing of photo book like yours that you have to go through? And like, can you like tell me the steps and like what you kind of like the hoops you have to go through? And do you have any editors you have to involve at any point?
Great question. I self-published this book. You can go through publishers, and that might be something that I consider in the future, because I'm definitely going to do more than one book. But we did a lot of Googling and researching. We asked the printer that we used, we asked them several questions on what to do. And it does have an IMDb, I always forget that mixed up, but it's just something that you purchase online, and it helps if you want to have it in retail shops and whatnot. So because I self-publish, that means that I'm the one who's having to reach out to local bookshops, and I'm having to create my own book tour. And at this point, I'm doing it all on my own. And Sarah, is there anything that you can add to the process part?
Yeah, it was interesting learning about publishing because I had no idea. I was asking people the same questions that you are and learning about the ISBN, whatever the number is, the book number that we had to get, and figuring out how to do that. That was probably the biggest thing that was like, I think we need to do this, but I don't understand what it entails. So we just Googled it and we asked the printer and figured it out. But we used Edition One Publishing, edition with an E, and they were really, really helpful. And they had a lot of like really great options. And I mean, we emailed with them for a couple of months before we even sent the book off, just trying to figure out what we were doing. But yeah, they were really helpful.
Okay, that's pretty cool. And also, once you get it published, like you were talking about how you had to talk to all these different booksellers and, you know, to make a tour for yourself. So like, did you design any additional aspects for like the tour? Like, you know, any additional like, you know, signs or different things to like, you know, represent the book in any other way?
Not yet. It's all coming. It's all happening at the same time, but we'll have to do a whole nother campaign.
Okay, that's really cool. Thank you for showing us the book. It was really, really nice. And also I love your earrings. They're really cute.
Thank you, Zara.
Super cute.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Are you going to do a Kindle version of this book, or do you feel it's a desecration of the photography and the art to do a book like that in Kindle form? And the other question I have is, listen, you've given a lot of thought to probably femaleness and womanhood and yin energy. And I'm really curious, I hope this isn't too provocative. I'm curious of your views on transgenderism. Is that something you'd consider for the book? David Mamet, the playwright's been in the news lately, and he lives in Santa Monica, and he says in Hollywood, nobody believes that stuff. He says, but they can't say anything because they'll be ostracized. And I'm curious about you guys who are so thoughtful about this topic. Leah Thomas, anything you want to say about where we are culturally? Discuss.
As far as the Kindle version goes, I have not considered that. So thank you for bringing that to my attention. I do love print, so yeah, I don't have a good answer for that. So thank you for bringing that to my mind. What I'm doing personally, it does deal a lot with the yin energy and with women, but I hope that no matter what gender someone is, they can come and they can land and they can learn to accept and love their bodies, no matter what they are. And so I hope that I can bring peace and gentleness and play to every single human being, no matter their identity, their sexual identity, their gender, any of that. So that's kind of where I stand on Ladygroove. Does that answer your question? Okay. Oh, I did want to say this. This particular book was formed out of clients coming to me, and they so graciously allowed me to put their images in a book. If I do something else and it's specifically related, so like her body is not, it's not the full representation of all of who I believe her body is. It just happens to be that these people came to me for their own transformation, for their own connection to themselves, and then they allowed me to put them in the book. But if I was making a book that was just for her body, it would be much more expansive.
Allie, can you and Sarah put y'all's, how people can reach you into maybe the chat box? I've had a couple people direct that question.
Absolutely. Would love to. This has been a pleasure.
I have a question. What is your advice to young designers who, kind of just entered the field in terms of like networking and building connections and relations?
You said designer, so I'll take that. I feel like I'm a young designer that just entered the field. So I'm right there with you. But I think that, like I said earlier, just reaching out to people that you admire and that you would want to work with, and just like making the call, it goes a long way. I am always like cold emailing people or messaging people on LinkedIn, trying to get coffee with people and just like make connections and talk to people. And then, once you get more and more into your career and into different offices and at different companies. You start meeting more and more people and talking to them about what you like to do, and making connections through them. So yeah. What's that? Oh, yeah, I think I'm still figuring that out, honestly. But especially now, you know, with COVID, the past 2 years, there haven't been networking events or opportunities to meet people in real life or conferences or, you know, what have you. I feel like we all need to relearn what it means to network and how to make those connections now. Maybe that's also why I don't have a great answer. I've done a lot of virtual coffee with people.
I thought that was a really good point you made about playing with a concept or an assignment or but can you give more specific advice on a routine or how you go about doing that if you're going to tell somebody?
Clarify that question just a little bit more for me.
Yeah, you said, I really agree with you about the concept of play with an idea or a concept. But is there a specific routine or a structure or something that you do to get into that play mode? Is there some kind of advice you'd give to the students about how to enter that headspace?
Well, one of the ways that I was explaining and sharing was that I go back to my childhood and I say, what made me feel free? And when did I feel safe and happy? What was I doing? Was I creating? Was I taking a bath? I don't, you know, whatever it was. So I go back into that space often. And now I have visited it so many times, it comes natural to me when I am in a rut. And then as far as my process would play with Ladygroove, I have created a structure for that very specifically that I take people through because I've been doing it for so long. And I love the idea of structure is freedom. So having, you don't want 1 million options and ideas. It's overwhelming. So you just pick a few things, like me having a studio, shooting in that place, them having one prop, us having a clear intention of what we're doing, and then we can play. So like the more simple it is, it gives us the freedom. Is that helpful? Okay.
One more last question. Would you ever want to explore, because I like the picture that you had in the beginning with all the girls together. It was just very platonic and just very, you know, sweet and just kind of relaxed. Would you ever maybe explore doing that, but with like maybe like, for example, men and women or men and men? Because I feel like that's something that you don't usually typically see in terms of like just, especially with men, like very just platonic images. Because when you see men nude, they're always very shot, very sexually charged, and never really like in a, you know, calm demeanor.
Absolutely. I have photographed that and I love that concept. And I have to, as a business owner, I have to keep my goals and my vision really clear for me. And so maybe one day I'll expand more into that. But at this point, I'm a no. You can go on my on Instagram and you can see that there are a few other men on there, but I'm really good at this particular thing, and so it's sort of my realm of genius, and so I want to stay in this until it kind of becomes less like, you know, maybe my place of excellence or down, and then I'll expand. Personally, I am shooting things like this. You're just probably not seeing it.
And for your business model, the clients pay beforehand for the individual shoot, and then later their pictures get compiled into the book, and do they receive payments, or like is it just like once paid and done?
So the book was not even in my mind when I was photographing all of these people. It wasn't even on the table. I saw another photographer in Greenville do something not similar, but he created a coffee table book, and I was like, gosh, I have a lot of content. And people would say to me, I want to see all of these together. I would buy your book. And here I am scared and thinking I can't do it, but there is a market for it and people want to see it. So I hired several people other than Sarah to help me on this project. And I hired this guy named Daniel. He was so helpful. He emailed back and forth with every single person that we chose to put in the book, got a model release. And we decided on what kind of energy exchange we would have.
Okay, really cool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Allie, Sarah, thank you guys for coming today. This has been really, really enlightening. And I think tomorrow morning when some of the audience wakes up, they'll be thinking about what you said today. And you'll probably hear from some of them. No question you will. Thank you all for coming and doing this, for celebrating your new book. And we look forward to seeing it for real very soon. And it's super. So everybody, thank you all for coming. In the chat box, if you want to get in touch, and several of you have been asking during the presentation, it's the information is now in the chat box. So go there, and hey, we'll see everybody next week.
Thank you so much for having us. It was a joy.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. My name is Tyler. I'm going to be one of the admissions advisors helping you guys to start your creative careers here with the Miami Ad School with our 4 portfolio programs: art direction, copywriting, photography and video, and design, as well as our boot camps. We are well equipped to make you well equipped for the creative industry. And my job is to help you transition smoothly from prospective to enrolled student. We have financial aid and scholarships available for all of our portfolio programs, and our 4 U.S. locations, Miami, Atlanta, San Francisco, and New York, as well as our international locations, are ready for you guys to go ahead and enroll when you are ready. So feel free to go to our website, www.miamiadschool.com, hit apply now, start your application, and if you have any questions, set up a call, and we will be happy to help you.